What's going on, guys? Welcome to VeVe Investments, and yes, I am a new VeVe YouTuber. I've been involved with the community since March of 2021, and well, VeVe community is something special, let me put it that way. I decided to create my own channel here. I want to spread some of my own knowledge and insights on the project, and I really hope you guys enjoy. As for episode 1, I want to talk about why the little things matter, and specifically 5 examples of what the team has done or is doing that I think maybe is being a little overshadowed during times like this. So let's get into it. First thing I want to talk about, guys, is going to involve the Ecomi utility program, or the OUP. I'm not going to go through the whole structuring of it, but I do want to talk about how they structured the tiers. So first and foremost, Taps Trades, little shout out to him. Great YouTuber in the community. I've been watching him for a little bit now. I know he made a video on this a little while back, several months back at this point. So I just kind of want to refresh some memories and walk through it again. But the way the team structured the tiers is going to be based off of the dollar value of Ecomi you have in your portfolio, as opposed to the amount of tokens you have. The reason why this is so crucial, or, you know, in my opinion, genius, is take an individual like myself. I see renting collectibles as, you know, long-term for investors, super valuable. So I'm somebody who's going to want to have at least $10,000 worth of Ecomi staked in my portfolio in order to qualify for things like renting collectibles, burning, etc., right? So let's say Ecomi's at 1 cent. I have a $10,000 worth of Ecomi staked, and then Ecomi drops down to 0.0095. The value of my portfolio now drops below 10 grand, and I now fall from tier 3 to tier 2. So as an investor who's interested in wanting to rent out the collectibles, well, I now go to an exchange, right, to go purchase more Ecomi, top my bags up to make sure that I have at least $10,000 or more to qualify for those renting capabilities, right? So that is so crucial, because if you were to flip the switch and go, or not flip the switch, but turn the tables and base each one of these tiers off of the amount of tokens someone's holding, well, I can purchase 1 million tokens, hold that for a full year without buying or selling any of them, and I'm guaranteed to stay in the same tier, right? So the way they've set these tiers up does two main things, right? The first one is going to be, it's going to incentivize current investors to keep purchasing, right? That way they maintain in the tier level that they want to stay in order to access those benefits, right? The second one, and the more obvious of the two, is going to be the tier structure itself, and the fact that, you know, any new users on the platform or new investors who want to qualify for these benefits would have to invest these amounts of money in order to do so, right? Or in order to get access. So that would be something very small example of, you know, how the team is kind of thinking behind the scenes and how smart this team actually is. That would be the first point there. Now, second point I really want to talk about is, you know, the point that keeps coming up about marketing the platform. I know Reese has commented on this several times now, but people keep bringing up the fact, like, you know, why didn't we, you know, market the platform during the AF15 drop? Why haven't we marketed the platform or promoted it in multiple different countries at this point? Why haven't we changed the photos on the App Store to display better IP? There's so many questions around it. And I mean, the main answer, guys, is just, it doesn't make sense. I mean, from a business standpoint, if you're selling out all your drops on a weekly basis in the middle of a recession, well, keep in mind, there's multi-billion-dollar corporations going under. There's no reason for them to spend their budget on marketing dollars to promote it to more people if it's already selling out. And that's ultimately what it comes down to, is that, you know, the businesses that are going under, a majority of them right now in the crypto and NFT space, it's because their consumer base is cashing out at a faster rate than they can pay out. So what's happening, or at least for the most part what it looks like, is these businesses are running out of cash on the back end, right? You can even talk about Ascendex with the whole closing, the Ecomi staking, right? Started at 10% and cut it in half to 5 and cut it in half to 2. And from what I understood, I'm pretty sure they put a hold on all withdrawals. So there's a lot of companies doing that just as like a precautionary thing. And although VeVe hasn't said how much cash they have, I would bet that they're probably swimming pretty deep in it, just given the fact that they continue to sell out of drops. And keeping in mind, these aren't small drops. They're selling out of multiple drops with multiple thousands of additions each week. And again, during rough market conditions. So I don't think that's something to take lightly. I think I think if anything, consider what the team is doing, right? It's a strategic step. They understand that there's no need to market the platform, and they understand that there's several buttons that they can press right now that would influence the business in several ways, but now is just not the time. Next point, I want to talk about team experience. This is kind of for the newer investors who don't really know much about the team. Older investors obviously are going to know a lot about this, but I wanted to speak about this because I think, when you compare VeVe to a lot of, the projects on, OpenSea that are getting rug pulled or, pump and dumped, there's one very, very common pattern amongst those projects. And it's the fact that, the audience doesn't fully know or hasn't fully educated themselves on who's behind the project. And so what ends up happening is the people who are behind it run off with millions. And then the people who invested and lost all their money now end up doing a little research on those people and find out that those people had 4 or 5 fraud charges in their past, right? So when you compare stuff like that to a team that's backing a project like VeVe, there's nothing but green lights, right? I got 3 individuals on the screen right now, David, you, Dan, and Alcon. And you'll see that through all 3 of these individuals not only have experience in multiple industries, but they have success in multiple industries. And I think that's something very big to note here. So let's start with Dan, co-founder, CEO of VeVe. He's the face, the name behind the brand, really. I mean, he started his entrepreneurial journey at 14. That's crazy in and of itself. He opened his first collectible store at 17. To this day, is 17 established companies, and for the last 20 years, he's been working with IP. Right? For those of you guys who don't know what IP is, that's going to do with the licenses on VeVe. Hence the reason why VeVe has unmatched IP on the platform. Compared to other platforms in the industry, it's not even a competition. David is a collector. It's who he is. It's who he's always been. And the only difference now is, he started in the collectible space, in the physical retail space, and now all of it's being digitized. He just happens to be the one kind of paving the way, right? Moving on, we got Dan Crothers. Dan Crothers is another co-founder and COO of VeVe. A little bit of a different history, but again, very successful. He has history with founding numerous successful startups, one of which was a web agency that serviced companies like Hasbro and the Red Cross. And then he also had another media agency in the US that had millions of followers. And then back in 2006, he got into the cannabis industry and he co-founded, I believe, was the biggest cannabis publication company. It was called Herb back then as well. So again, a bit of a different history, but again, something to note with him is multiple industries and continued success, right? And in the business industry in particular, I have a business background. It's one thing to understand the system of a business and understand how to duplicate that over and over and over again. But when you take a business and you plop it into a whole other industry, right, and there's a whole other set of cultural values and business practices, and you plop it into another country and things like that, there's so many variables involved. So it's very impressive that all 3 of these guys have continued success in multiple industries. And then last but not least, is Alcon. Alcon is head of licensing for VeVe, and actually the only one that I knew prior to getting in on the project. For those of you guys who do not know this man, he is responsible for a lot of people's childhoods. He is the man behind Pokemon, pretty much. He didn't create the brand. It was called Pocket Monsters, but he did acquire the license. He changed the name and pretty much made it what it is today. But he's also messed around with licenses with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I know Yu-Gi-Oh!, Cabbage Patch Kids, the list really goes on from there. But he's also responsible for 6 out of the 10 largest children's brands of all time. Children's toy brands of all time, I believe. And he himself did say that he hopes to make VeVe number 7. So again, nothing to take lightly there. So just to summarize this point, again, team experience with this project, all green lights. But when you compare it to multiple other projects that are just pumping and dumping, there's multiple red lights in all those that you can see, right? All good things. Moving on to the next point is going to be talking about the difference between a private and a public company, because I think a lot of the time right now, the community is forgetting that VeVe is a private company and that they do not need to be nearly as transparent as they are choosing to be. You know, you can hop on any social forum right now and find somebody, you know, trying to cause FUD or try to find some sort of information from Dan or Reese or David. You know, they don't need to tell us everything. At the end of the day, they're a smaller team, right? They released the app in October of 2020 to a test group and then released it to the public in January of 2021. They forecasted 60,000 users by the end of 2021. They had over 1 million, right? So here you go, having a small team building this app. You have a small team managing the app. And then all of a sudden you have this massive influx of users on an app that isn't ready for that many users. And now this small team has to step up in front of all those users, right? So I think a lot of people are they're not giving the team enough credit for what they've done and what they continue to do in such short periods of time. My opinion, but. And then last point is I want to talk about licensor due diligence. A lot of people are saying, you know, sell your bags. The co-founders don't really know what they're doing, or they're driving the project into the ground. And at the end of the day, guys, you don't be a speck on a painting. Like, take a step back, look at the whole painting hanging on the wall, and you'll realize very quickly, very easily, the world's largest IP is flocking to one brand. Okay? There's a reason why. And I personally, as an investor, don't think we know that reason why yet. I think we have an idea of the vision, but again, talking on my previous point about private versus public, VeVe is a private company, and the amount of information that they've told us versus the information they've told their licensors who have signed partnerships with them, it's like a fraction. So take Disney for an example, right? David's mentioned about how it's taken them years to acquire the partnership since 2018. They're sitting behind closed doors for multiple years, not just twiddling their thumbs, right? Disney's trying to figure out VeVe's business model, the steps they're looking to take, their vision, whether it's in line with Disney's vision, whether VeVe's able to fulfill on all of this, right? Again, lots of variables. But on top of that, VeVe is also showing Disney likely iterations of the metaverse, right? And iterations of things that we don't even know are coming yet, right? So I would argue that, you know, a large reason why a majority of these companies have signed on is probably for something we don't even know yet. Because why would a company like Disney sit in meetings for multiple years just to go, hey, yeah, we'll sign a partnership for you, and then hope to be where they are just a year into operations with that partnership, right? Like, of course, there's obviously a lot more down the line that Disney expects from VeVe, and in those meetings, they're discussing stuff like that. So again, people saying like, you know, the founders don't really know what they're doing. When you take a look at all these little things, you understand that the team really does know what they're doing, and this team is really smart. So think twice, be a little bit more patient. I guess that's my overall message, but that is my first video, guys. I hope you enjoyed the content. I appreciate you guys tuning in. If you did, drop a like down below. If you want to see more, subscribe, and yeah, if you want more people in the community to kind of start seeing the content, make sure to share it around, and hopefully we'll get the word spread. So we'll see you in the next one. Appreciate it, guys.